Hello everyone, I'm Bible Jonathan and you welcome to this edition of the Inside on Equinox Television. In this edition of the program, we're going to take a look at some of the problems plaguing the University of Boya, particularly the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication. We'll equally take a look at the deplorable situation of thousands of Anglophones seeking refuge in neighboring Nigeria. Their situation is becoming more and more disturbing every day, and we're also going to take a look at the functioning or simply the putting in place of the Constitutional Council. In some few seconds, discover our guests. Our guest in this edition of the program is Dr. Kingsley Leongala Ngange. He is the head of the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication at the University of Boya. Doctor, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you, Babila. It's a pleasure for me to be here with you. I'm delighted to be part of the program Inside Equinoxe Television, my favorite TV.
The department which you head, the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication at the University of Boya, is plagued by a certain number of problems, notably concerning the master students who have not graduated up to now.
I don't know that the department is plagued by a number of problems. You're informing me. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that...
The fact that the students have not graduated is a problem.
Not quite. Well, when you say it's a problem, it looks like someone is deliberately preventing the students from graduating. I would not like to discuss the technicalities of how files are processed within the university system.
So what is
graduation. So no one is blocking them. We are going through the administrative procedure to clear them for their defenses. And on my way here, I was communicating with the postgraduate school where their files are. And we hope that in the days ahead, hopefully in the weeks ahead, you hear the students defending their master's thesis. Normally, it's 2 years for a master's thesis, but that also depends on the foundation which you put in place from the beginning. So sometimes you get a few 1 month or 2 months delay if you didn't probably hit the ground running. So in the days ahead, the students will be called to start defending. As we speak, there is a little issue about getting them registered for this academic year, and as soon as that's done, then they will defend their master's thesis. I don't think that is the first time that students have not defended their master's thesis after 1 or 2 months maximum, because this is just March starting. Normally they were supposed to do that in November. So what
has been blocking the graduation process till now?
Not graduation process, defense of their master's thesis, like I said.
Yes, what has been blocking that?
I'll give you a simple example. If you are working with a supervisor and the supervisor has not submitted the scientific report, there is no way the file is going to be processed. If you have not moved into a new academic year and you have not registered for the academic year, there is no way the file is going to be completed until you register. The University of Boya has a system. There is the academic part and then there is the administrative part. The two must work together, and that's what we are trying to harmonize. And of course, you know that I took over as head of department about 7 months ago. It's one of the many things I'm dealing with, but we're happy that the head of the department is moved up to A grade now. So all the arms of the department are working well. We have a functional radio station now. We have a functional newspaper. We have our PhD students. I'm fast tracking it with guest lectures which are monthly. We have many other innovations we are bringing into place. The student evaluation of lecturers. We have been able to meet with our ex-students in Yaoundé, Douala, Bamenda, Boya, Limbe, Kumba to talk about the 25th anniversary of the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication. I think that the department is doing very well and everybody is on board, all hands on deck. And in the days ahead, like I said, the delay of about a month or two of the master's students defending their thesis will also be adequately handled.
Some of the students are accusing you of being the hindrance.
Well, I don't know about that you're telling me now. And if I'm being the hindrance, I don't know where I'm hindering the process. Would you like to clarify?
The students are speaking. They're saying that you have something to do with the delay.
That they should tell me where the issue is so that I can hear. On the
You are the
contrary,
head of department now, and so
absolutely, and that's what I'm telling you. On the contrary, we are doing everything possible to fast track the process. And I'm working with a fantastic postgraduate coordinator, Mr. Divine Bison. And Mr. Divine Bison and I are burning the midnight candle, working on behalf of the students. And we are in contact with the students and making sure that they are aware, they have up-to-date information about how they are processing their files. My plate was full when I took over the department. Like I said, I'm a very optimistic person. I believe that the cup is halfway full, not halfway empty. And some of them, if are honest enough, they will tell you what efforts we are making to move the process forward. As we also speak, if you come to the department, you will see about 8 of the master's theses which are not yet completed. So sometimes we have to deal with those things internally. But I'm surprised that I don't know.
They ought to have been completed by now.
By the supervisors. Like I said, I don't want to get into details about the functioning of the Masters in Corporate Communication. That's what you are talking about. Because until I was appointed head of the department...
You should get into the details because they want to know. They're listening to you.
I have had meetings with them, the students, and we have discussed this elaborately right from the second month when I took over as head of the department. We sat in the conference room. I gave them an outline of how we should work together to have this thesis defended. When it was time for those theses to be defended by the faculty, I requested that the thesis should be presented. They were not yet available. And we have worked with the supervisors of the students, and as we speak, about 22 or 23 supervisors of the students have submitted their scientific reports and the thesis, the package completed and forwarded to the postgraduate school for defense. So the file that it's now at the level of postgraduate school is just awaiting probably the students to register for this academic year, and then they'll be cleared for defense. Not me, someone else. No. Maybe you should be properly informed of that.
Despite all these efforts that you're highlighting, there seems to be an ill omen in the journalism department in the University of Boya. No, what is the problem?
There isn't. I don't know where this is coming from. There isn't. And I think that we should be able to accept change whenever it comes, and be able to make sure that we work for the interest of the department. Some of the things you are revealing to me now, I'm getting them for the first time, because I've had a fantastic working relationship with all the members of staff available to work with us. We have been to Yaoundé to meet ex-students. We've been to Douala here to meet with ex-students. We've been to Bamenda to meet with ex-students. We have been to Kumba, we have been to Limbe, we have been to the camaraderie. It's just fantastic. So I don't know where this is coming from.
Now, before his appointment, Dr. Abangma of Sines told the Inside that you and others begged for appointment by writing against some of your colleagues during the crisis. In fact, he referred to some of you as blacklegs.
He referred to me personally?
To some of you are like blacklegs during the crisis in the University of Boya.
Which crisis are you talking about?
The students who went on strike and so.
I don't know the crisis you're talking about, because the University of Boya has had quite a number of them. I didn't probably watch that edition of your Inside, but I would like to find out, did Professor Abangma actually mention me?
He said you and others
me, Kingsley
wrote against some of your colleagues.
Did he give you a copy of what we wrote against?
Did you write?
Did you get a copy?
I'm asking you.
No, I didn't.
Because you're the one concerned with this.
I mean, when we are university lecturers and professors, we should be scientific. When you're saying that somebody wrote against me, you should be able to show evidence on what the person wrote against. But I think that my position as a progressive scholar in the university, working against strikes in terms of letting students come to school and gain the full benefits of why they're in the University of Boya, and also maybe some of the things you're talking about. But you see, I stand on the statement that Mahatma Gandhi said. He said, when you know the truth, speak it. Of course, like Plato said, no one is more hated than he who speaks the truth. And if, like Mahatma Gandhi continued, 99% of the people against you still stand up the truth, because the truth is the truth, even if it's 1% of the people who are with it. I don't remember writing against Professor Nabama. And if there was something to write about, I'm still wondering what that will be, you know. And there are issues about Senes and the running of Senes that I don't think this is the forum to discuss it. If he did, I don't find comfortable discussing internal university matters in public. And talking about appointments, you need to know who Kingsley Ngange is. Then you will start talking about begging for appointments. I don't beg for appointments. If I'm not a lecturer in the university, there are several other things that I will be doing. You know that before lecturing in the university, I'd worked there as public relations officer. I worked in CRTV, and some of my reporting we're talking about before now. Some of the top stories in this country, I cover them. As we speak, I don't only teach in the University of Boya. I teach within the UN system, the university, UN University for Peace, in the PhD program in Addis, in master's program in Uganda. I teach in the US and many other places. So begging for appointment as head of department, it's very, I think, insulting to my person.
Now, I think one of the most important things the students, the master students in the GMC, Journalism and Mass Communication Department of the University of Boya should be expecting to hear from you now is how soon?
Very soon, and they know, those I'm working with, the first batch of students should be expecting their defense coming up, like I said, in the days and weeks ahead. And if they have a good conscience, they will know the sleepless nights and efforts I have put for the process to get up to this level. Number one. Number two, it's the second batch of students, who are 13 of them, are now, you know, studying. I left them in the university on my way here, studying, and we have a tight schedule. They're writing their exams from the 21st to the 23rd of March. And immediately after, from the 4th, they're doing their last part. And those, we have put their program in a way that they should be able to finish with their master's thesis by September, October. That's the way it should be. If you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. So if probably the process was not well planned or executed, you don't want to blame that on someone else. But again, I have thick shoulders, and that's what leaders are. So I accept whatever comes the way, without getting into bad talks, street talks, of, you know, trying to shift it on someone else or giving a dog a bad name to hang it. As a leader, I assume all of that. But I said earlier, I believe in the cup being halfway full than being empty. And in the end, when they would have defended their master's thesis in the days ahead, then we'll all celebrate. And they will know in the end that Kingsley Ngange is the one who rather help them defend than obstruct the process.
It is usually said that on easy lies the head that wears the crown.
Definitely, and you see a few gray hair on my head now.
All
my
right.
mother was reminding me of that and told me that, son, you are growing fast. I said, there's the load I'm carrying. If I start reviewing the department I wrote, and by the way, I'm writing that in my memoir, the GMC that was handed to me, the challenges, the successes, and the prospects. You want to read that. If you come to the Department of Journalism as we speak, and you see the things going on, giving the department the professional touch that it should have had, then my students who are there will be surprised with the kind of questions that we are discussing here. Because now you begin to feel that there is life in the department, you begin to see professionalism, you begin to see, and we are lucky to have the kind of Vice Chancellor we have, who is a visionary leader, who is someone who loves progress, who loves things being done properly. And when we relaunched the departmental radio, which had ceased to exist before I was appointed for about 6 months, the Vice Chancellor personally left his high office to come in to give us the push and said, this is what the Department of Journalism should be doing. And we're happy that he has given us all the support. In the days ahead, we'll be buying equipment, and we're hoping that when we celebrate 25th anniversary in October and November, we will be getting also equipment to start a functional TV. That's what we do. The departmental newspaper, The Chariot, has ceased to exist for about 3 years before I took over the department. But now it's regular. It came out in December, came out in February. The last edition was yesterday, and we're working towards the next edition. That's what makes the department professional. That's what makes the students have hands-on training by, the job people hitting the job market running. And that's what, as head of department, I've been commissioned to do, and that's what I'm doing.
All right, Doctor, we're going to take a look at what the newspapers reported this week, and when we come back, we'll discuss the deplorable situation of Cameroonian refugees who fled their homes from the northwest and southwest regions of the country, and they are seeking refuge in President Buhari's country.
The March 2 cabinet shake-up by the President of the Republic and the publication of the senatorial list occupied front pages of all newspapers. According to the Median, Biya spoils Anglophones with enticing portfolios. The Sun says Biya rewards loyal Anglophones. The Guardian Post on its front page indicates that PM Yang Famndongo survive, but adds that federalism dream is fading with the creation of the Ministry of Decentralization, with the Rambler saying that the cabinet shake-up was uneventful, while the Horizon described the appointment by the head of state as a poisoned chalice for Anglophones, and The Voice concludes by saying the Biya's all-new government shocks Anglophones, but still no end to marginalization. In one of its issues, the Guardian Post reports that the new government organigram puts long-throat SDOs off council money with the creation of the Ministry of Decentralization and Local Development, while Eden says PM Yang puts new ministers on their toes, prescribing loyalty and dedication as pointers for emergence. On the same story, the Rambler reported that PM Yang told new ministers to kill disunity and uphold team spirit. Apart from the cabinet reshuffle, the Anglophone crisis makes headline news. The Horizon reports about the 1-month curfew imposed on the southwest region, while the Guardian Post talks about the ban on the circulation of motorbikes in 3 northwest subdivisions by the governor. This comes at a time that the Post Weekender says 3 villages were razed in Batibo, 4 visited after bloody attacks. To curb the unrest, the Guardian Post indicates that the no-nonsense Atanganji puts governors, SDOs and DOs on hot seat as he demands for a daily report on happenings. Meanwhile, United Nations demands access to probe right violation in the northwest and southwest region. The Guardian Post also reported that Anglophone Kondengi prison detainee dies, and the Sun indicates that the United Nations doesn't encourage separation of Cameroon. According to the United Nations Special Representative for Central Africa, out of the Anglophone crisis, news about the senatorial elections also made headline story with the publication of the list. The Post Weekender says the publication of the senatorial list by Elekam sparks anxiety, with 5 lists rejected and 36 validated, while SDF backs out in the Central region and Motombi's list dumped by the CPDM Central Committee. Still on the senatorial election, the Guardian Post says CPDM is set to sweep all 70 seats, insisting that SDF, UNDP and others may only have senators among the 30 to be appointed by the head of state.
Tens of thousands of Cameroonians who fled their homes in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon as a result of the worsening situation, notably concerning the Anglophone crisis, and are now seeking refuge in neighboring Nigeria, living in difficult and even precarious conditions. Many of them don't have food to eat on daily basis. Doctor, when you look at this, what can you say about the efforts government has been putting in to solve this problem?
The first thing I want to say is that it's sad to have your brothers and sisters living as refugees in another country. Even when you're not a refugee, it's very difficult to live in another country because your rights, you feel like they have been taken completely from you. So that's not a very good image to watch. So with that, you would want that all hands should be put on deck, not only government, but all the stakeholders, opinion leaders, political leaders, concerned institutions and organizations to make sure that the armed conflict which has forced these Cameroonians to leave their homes should be resolved immediately. Not only refugees, even around us where we live in Boya, you feel like you don't have the complete freedom because we are where we are with the problems that we're facing. Yesterday, I was sitting somewhere in the evening, about 8:30 at night, almost about 8:30, with my wife who took me out. It was Women's Day, and we're eating, dinner somewhere. And behold, the security, because you have the curfew of 8 p.m. Everybody should leave those public places like bars and so forth. So when it was 8 p.m., the security forces were there, and I left my dinner halfway. Everybody left their drinks halfway, and we all rushed to our homes. So that's where we are. So with that, you want these problems to be resolved quite quickly, and people should regain their normal lives. And we are hoping that with some of the measures that have been put in place, we should be able to see us regaining full freedom in especially those areas which are most affected.
The increasing number of refugees who are in Nigeria today, is it not an indication that what government has been doing so far to solve this problem is not enough?
I don't want to look at it from that perspective. Efforts have been made. It could be that more efforts are needed. Yes, but there are two things. I have a young man who just returned from Nigeria investigating the issues of the refugees, and I know that in the days ahead we'll be seeing some of the reporting coming from Nigeria. But it brings to mind two things which are worrying to me. Number one is that it gives a negative image of our country internationally, and that is taking our internal conflicts, what they call intra-state conflict, now at the level of an international dimension. But when you start talking about refugees in another country, then the crisis is now taking an international dimension. That's the first thing that I'm worried about, the international dimension that the crisis is taking with the issue of the refugees. The second thing is that if you learn from experience from what some of the Western nations are going through, it's very easy now to recruit terrorists from amongst those refugees or amongst people who are living in a foreign nation because they have pent-up anger, their frustrations and all of that. That's why you see, when you see bombings in America, in Europe, they try to trace it, and in most cases it goes right back to places like Iraq, Syria and all of that. So these are people who have fled their homes and are living out like refugees. When you do that, then you start now building the minds of people who start working against their nation in future. So I think there is need to accelerate the process of resolving the crisis, and I'm hopeful that this is going to be done soon.
And our Southwest correspondent Derek Jato was in the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and he brought back this special story.
Amana in Obalingu local government area, Cross River State of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thousands of Southern Cameroonian refugees are spread all over this area. And when we met them, these Southern Cameroonian refugees told us that the only thing that is available and in abundance here in Amana is hunger.
Life is very, very strong for we, the refugees. We complain all the time, especially starvation. Food, we don't have food yet since October. So there have been a lot of problems of sleeping, food items, and cooking utensils.
This farming population left everything behind them in Cameroon, and each day they pray and wait for someone to come to their rescue in a foreign land. In one of their assembly grounds, a child is safe with water for lunch. Elsewhere, a kid denied his own twin brother food given for both of them by their mother. Today the Aya Foundation just came in with foodstuff and other relief materials from Cameroon. With no telephone network here in Amana, the Amana village town crier managed to assemble only this few number. The majority of the refugees are far off and could not be reached. Not everyone here will go home with even a cup of rice. The tons of foodstuff brought by the foundation will not be sufficient to go round.
One man, one way, handicap.
The people once not in Africa as living in plenty are seen to be scrambling for a meal. Everyone is involved. The children join their parents in the struggle, at least to secure a cup of rice, a cube of sugar, a cube of savon or Maggi for the family, even if it will last only for a day.
We have been suffering, people have been dying, even children have been dying.
Sick the body with plenty, as we there so. Like myself, when all they see so, I don't know how I go, look how they hold me for hand before they come here. All these problems, at times we go for doctor for medicine, don't finish, this.
The United Nations and the Nigerian government have both contributed their own quota.
Even the National Commission for Refugees came in full swing with a lot of relief material. Along with this were drugs sent in by the federal government.
But the health services are far from being adequate for the 17,000 registered Anglophone refugees in Cross River State, Nigeria. Aya Foundation, a Cameroon-based humanitarian organization, descended to Nigeria.
We thought what we were hearing on social media, on the other major stations like yours, was a joke. So we saw a lot of people. We did what we could do for them. This is just like a pilot project. So when we go back to Cameroon, we know how to prepare better and come to take care of these people better. Yeah, very sick people.
At Danare Health Center.
These people, okay, they've been completely treated?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Some are sutured, they've got an injury, some 12 stitches treated.
Okay.
Till now, I've not received that.
The foundation paid the accumulated bills of refugees that were treated here to enable the center buy more drugs, as many sick refugees keep on crossing the border on daily basis.
I will bring more drugs here.
Okay.
Because that was my problem. I was really bleeding over the drugs. Okay. So with this appreciation, I will try to bring more drugs again.
Okay. We are here at the Amana Health Center. Behind me, you can see the signboard. It is under the Cross River State. The health situation of Cameroonian refugees is so life-threatening.
At Amana Health Center, a financial donation was equally made, and in each health unit, this Cameroonian humanitarian team kept begging the Nigerian health personnel to continue treating the Anglophone refugees. and for better health care. Some Nigerian doctors have even taken some Anglophone refugees to their homes.
My name is Mr. Emmanuel, a health worker with the Boki Local Government Council of Cross River State. Yeah, many of them came here with different conditions. First, the trauma of the war. They trekked so many miles carrying their luggages. They came here, they were weak. There are some with chronic problems that have been for years, like the ones that I'm accommodating here in my residence. I have 2 aged women. One of them had been diabetic for over 15 or 20 years. And the granddaughter of this aged mother is also diabetic. In fact, our situation is very critical.
It is widely speculated in Nigeria that this Anglophone crisis that is blamed for sending the Anglophone Cameroonians out of their country, Cameroon, is also responsible for the psychological torture these Sikh refugees are going through. For instance, the great-granddaughter of this 93-year-old mother say it is the greatest wish of her great-grandmother to go back at the moment. She is having, therefore, her health, her age, and the Anglophone crisis to battle with. And such situations are familiar here in the 5 local government areas hosting the 17,000 Anglophone refugees here in Cross River State, Nigeria.
When we look at the prevailing situation of these refugees, what do you think should be done immediately?
The immediate needs, like you said, the basic needs of the human beings: food, shelter, clothes, water to drink. They should first of all be treated like human beings by having these basic needs. The second thing is the children who are there. I feel for children who are there and don't go to school. Some of us are where we are today because we went to school. Mandela was in prison and was instructing that children should go to school. Anything outside that kind of clarion call is myopic in nature. So the children should at least have the basic right of going to school. That is what is going to make sure that they have a better life tomorrow. Healthcare is important, that should be done. While internal issues in Cameroon are being sorted out for these people to return to their homes, it's very, very important. Then all of us will be able to live in peace. I can't sleep in my home peacefully when I see fellow Cameroonians in Nigeria struggling over food when there is abundance of what to eat and drink and make merry in this country. It's sad. But how did we get here? It is worth looking into that so that we avoid errors in the past. Though, and I've said this in many other instances, that the only thing man has learned from history is that man never learns from history. Probably we're going to ask me about the issue of dialogue. But
before we come to that, Doctor, no government official has gone there till now. Since they have been there for quite a long period of time, no government official has gone there. We saw the Aya Foundation. Members of the Aya Foundation have gone there, giving them some food, aid, and so on.
Yeah, that no government official has gone there. It's hard to comprehend. But I don't want to speak on behalf of the government. I'm not a government official, and I'm analyzing things from what I see. We are hoping that, let's be pessimistic, that part of government's package to resolve this problem will entail dispatching officials to go and talk to these Cameroonians and let them know that they are still very important. The arms conflict, because you have to get even to the root cause. It's the armed struggling going on in their neighborhoods and in their villages, which is forcing them to flee because of the gunshots or the insecurity and what have you. We are not in some of those areas to really give you first-hand information. But I think that has to be resolved quickly for them to have peace of mind to come back home.
And to resolve that, you were talking about dialogue, which is what everybody has been talking about. Even the President of the Republic has mentioned it, but it seemed not to be working.
And that's the mystery behind this conflict. So I sat, by the way, our upcoming publication, it's on this, the Cameroon Anglophone crisis. I've done a whole chapter on the role of the media in the crisis. That probably could be a subject for another day. But let's get back to the issue of dialogue. I've sat down to think about what is this thing about dialogue? What is that one thing that must be on the table for you to know that dialogue is taking place? Because at first it was no dialogue has taken place, and later on that was rephrased to no genuine dialogue. It means some dialogue took place, but it wasn't genuine. And I don't know what measurement was used to establish that. But in my little analysis, I tried to separate the Cameroon Anglophone crisis. I'm not looking at it like one crisis. I'm looking at it like about 3 different crises, one that metamorphosed into different levels. The first is a genuine concern of lawyers and teachers whose demands were listened to, especially the teachers. I know a couple of meetings in Bamenda. And I saw a 25-point document that was meant to address the issues. But very quickly, there was the creation of the Cameroon Anglophone Consortium.
Anglophone Civil Society.
Civil Society, or Consortium, as it later was called. That seems to be where things went wrong. Because that's when a legitimate concern of lawyers and teachers was taken from them and sent to the civil society. And you know what the civil society is? It's made up of, Bayam Selam, it's made up of the Bensikines, it's made up of many other people. And so when they took it, it was even difficult for the teachers and lawyers who called for the strike to call it off. And when they did, nobody listened to them. How we got there should be taken into consideration. And that's why I think that those who took the legitimate strike of teachers and lawyers to the civil society, which now took issues in their hands and dictated the way that the crisis was moving with ghost towns and riots and things, should be held accountable. We cannot run a lawless society.
And some have attributed the escalation of the crisis to what is today referred to as the application of military solution to a socio-political problem.
I'm learning, because from civil society now, then the separatists came in. And that's where secession came in, and I was told that they said, no, we cannot discuss political issues in a dialogue process. So here is the point I want to make about the solutions to issues. In resolving I teach a course on conflict resolution in the University of Buea, in Uganda, in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. And we know that conflicts have about 3, normal ways to resolve them. You have what they call the diplomatic approach. There you can talk about talking and dialogue and all of that. The litigation, then you're talking about the courts. And I know that government was trying to do dialogue and the courts at the same time. And the last level, which is the repressive level, is when you now start getting into the military solution and the armed struggle. When you separate the conflict into different parts, then you see where different measures fall. And interestingly, there was a 4th dimension, which the Commonwealth Secretary General seemed to have introduced to us and probably didn't catch it. The last thing she said at the Simalene International Airport before she left was, let's make a prayer for Cameroon. I think that's the last dimension of conflict resolution. When dialogue can't work, when litigations can't work, laws and courts and things, where the armed struggle, like you say, things just get, worse every day. Then let's try a little prayer. And when we do that prayer, and I think that's where to err it's human, to forgive is divine, will come in and we'll be able to embrace each other and say, hey, we've come. One thing is certain, if we move into a war situation now, it's going to take us about 50 years to come out of it. I know what I'm talking about. I was discussing the Ugandan situation, is post-conflict building after the Lord Resistance Army with my students in Uganda who are top military people. Even in Addis Ababa, most of the countries which have separated, like South Sudan, Eritrea, you don't want to live in those countries because usually it's not the pieces, to pick up the pieces, it's going to take a lot of time. So I think that we should...
And even Libya today is another example.
Look at the mess. That's why we have been advocating, like when people said students should not go to school in the University of Buea, we stood our grounds. Probably that's why we end the bad name. But in future you will not, because now we have even started seeing the effects of the crisis, effects, not yet impact. You see, students come to school, they're now pregnant, some have not even come back to school, some are into smoking of them, they take drugs. I hear there is a popular one called tramadol or something, dropouts and things. You start seeing that now. The long run is the kids who are not going back to school, we start seeing their classmates who brave the odds and were in school in the next 15, 20 years, calling the shots and leading, and that pent up anger will still manifest. And you see, you keep moving, recycling the process of conflict in the country. That's why we said you cannot solve a problem by creating another one. Yes, we have problems. If you go around this country, you will see that some of the things we talk about are evident everywhere. If you make Southwest and Northwest and Eldorado, then the East, the West, and all of those other regions are in problems, they will all come to the Southwest and Northwest and create more problems. Why don't we look at it as a governance problem? Why don't we tackle the Cameroon problem globally? Then the rest of the issues will sort it out. My hope is that with an Anglophone now as Minister of Secondary Education, which is one of the sectors affected, and Territorial Administration, for the first time we have Anglophones there, this conflict should come to an end, and together we'll live again as Camerooners. I think that the message has gone across, and someone somewhere has listened to the message. Let us give what they call breathing space for us to see how the reforms will be implemented, except someone somewhere has a hidden agenda.
And talking about your former boss, Tonalova, who's been appointed Minister of Secondary Education, you seem to be praising that as one of the way out of the problem, but many think that she poorly handled the crisis at the University of Boya. And so they're putting question marks on how she's going to handle that sector with similar crises. We had the teachers who were on strike the other day in Yaoundé, and many of them were arrested and detained, and later compelled to sign an undertaking calling off the strike action and dissolving the pressure group they had created.
I think that was before she was appointed as minister, because I was privileged to be in her reception. One of the things she mentioned was to look very quickly into the teachers' problem. I don't think I'm here to evaluate Professor Nalova Lyunga's reign as Vice Chancellor of the University of Boya, but she did a good job. She did a good job. When she took over as Vice Chancellor of the University of Boya, one of the things she said was, Babila, was to bring the university back on the map. You needed to have seen the university before she took over from it, and where we are now. So there's nobody who will give you 100% solution. Talk, it's cheaper. To walk the walk, it's tough. But we should at least recommend and recognize good work or hard work when it's done. And I am here to say that I think we should give her a chance and see what she's going to do in secondary education. Having worked with her since 1997, when she was Director of Academic Affairs in the University of Boya, till now, I know what stuff she's made of. And she's going to address the problems head on. I'm optimistic and hopeful. And why not help her than sit back to see that she should fail for us to clap that she has failed.
Of course, we can only judge the work of the builder when the house
is completed.
Is completed.
I like the spirit.
All right. And so now, from the Anglophone problem, let's look at the senatorial elections coming up on the 25th of this month. The senators who are in office now will be moving out. What evaluation can you make of the last mandate or the ending mandate?
Babila, I think that the first mandate was spent to consolidate the places of the Senate. And so there was a lot of internal things to put together. The building of the house, and then from there making sure that maybe in the second mandate they will be able to achieve more. I don't want to speak a lot on this subject because, as you know, I'm a councillor in the Boya City Council. I like to call it City Council because Boya is the only regional headquarters which does not have a city council yet. But let me speak like a prophet and say that Boya City Council, I'm one of the 41 councillors and lucky to be the Secretary of the Works and Development Committee. I think that the councillors, that the senators that we sent there from our area did a good job. And we are hopeful that they will do a better job this time around. when we go to the polls to vote for our senators on the 25th of March.
So what do you foresee about the upcoming senatorial elections, notably regarding the fact that the CPDM is taking part in the 10 regions, the UNDP in the 10 regions?
That's right.
And then we have the Social Democratic from the 9 regions, and then the
except the
others
center
1
region
and 2 regions and so on.
That's right. We're hoping that it's a democracy that is, since 1990, is building and getting better, and we are hopeful that
probably
the landscape will be more animated this time around, especially with the new blood in the SDF, the presidential flag bearer, and who's a young person, dynamic person. You will see a lot of people getting motivated again to get into the political landscape. But what we want is a vibrant democracy and a vibrant media that should be able to make people, carry out informed decisions, and people who vote for them. I was telling somebody, I said, Cameroonians should grow to a point where they should, beyond looking at parties, look at people, look at individuals. And I think that they had done that once in Boya, where somebody was voted as mayor from the opposition party and somebody was sent to the parliament by the same people who voted from the ruling party. So that's why America is a vibrant democracy. People don't only vote parties, they vote people and their ideologies, what they stand for. And when we bring back here, then that idea back here, that will not run the fragmented political kind of a system that we do, or even within the media. We are so fragmented that politics and reporting along tribal lines, along regional lines, along all those petty things. Like an American president once said, we may be as divided as the fingers of the arm, but we should be united as the arm that carries the fingers. And that's when you look at the bigger picture, which is Cameroon. And with this, permit me say something. I find it astonishing that Cameroonians are not sometimes able to separate the government from the state. Americans may not love Donald Trump, but I tell you what, they love America.
They love their country.
They love their country. How did we get to this? I was returning from Addis the other day. I saw a young man from Boya just bumped into me and said, "Hey, you are going back to Cameroon?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Guess what? They are now killing people, macheting." And I said, "Hey, hold your peace. Is that not something good you can say about your country?" We should be able to see Cameroon beyond individuals, beyond one of my editorials in a departmental newspaper said, people come and go, institutions remain. The beloved country will be there even tomorrow. So let's start building that spirit of Cameroon above people.
But unfortunately, what is today known as party discipline, party politics, is dominating over what you're saying, and that's why the CPD will always have the overwhelming majority that many have considered today as what is making the parliament a toothless bulldog, in quotes.
There is party discipline, we agree, even in developed communities, but not when party discipline works against the interests of the state. That's why I'm saying that once you have the state at heart and all is about the state, then even party discipline will be forced to discuss issues that are of interest to the state. And because of that, I was just going to say this, as by the way, that the elections this year will be very interesting. Political scientists predict that after 25 years of a system, if it doesn't crack from without, it starts cracking from within. Let's try all our options and build Cameroon.
All right, before we go, your take on the putting in place of the Constitutional Council. This week they were sworn in. What do you think about the strength that this institution can have on the supervising, on their job of supervising the constitutionality of laws, of supervising or saying, having the last word on elections?
I think that it's important this body has been finally put in place. Since it was provided for by the Constitution of 1996. Probably the Supreme Court did not feel legitimate enough to play that role. But now with the Constitutional Council, it's a year of elections, and they would have their plate already full from day one. They have to hit the ground running. So let's pass that judgment when we must have acted after this year. But I'm hopeful that they're going to do a good job and move Cameroon forward. So let's be optimistic.
A constitutional council in a highly centralized state.
Decentralization is on its way. In the recent cabinet shake-up of March 2nd, one of the ministries created, actually territorial administration and decentralization, was split into two. One of the ministries is decentralization and the local government issues that people have been advocating for. We are hoping that it will expedite the process of bringing governance and bringing management right to the people. If you did that, there are many things that we will not get into, and we probably trying to be reactive than proactive. So I'm hoping, and we were all worried when the former Minister of Territorial Administration made the statement after the President's February 11 at 10th speech to the youth. And so we're hoping that with the new people in place, they will go in line with the vision of the head of state to make sure that decentralization becomes a reality. I was already reading the early analysis of decentralization when they said even the governors and the SDOs and the subdivision officers will not have the kind of control and grip that they have had over mayors and other local officials. If that is the case, it's a good thing. People want to feel administration right from their level. You don't have to go to Yaoundé for everything on the highway. You don't have to depend on the political system from up to dish out things like a god or a deity giving out life and things to the people out there. It's going to put on the fast track the development of our country, and that's what we want.
Dr. Kingsley Lyonga Langange, head of the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication at the University of Boya, thank you for accepting to be a guest in this edition of the program.
Babila Jonathan, thank you, my friend. It's been a long while. I've not done this, which is my passion. Of course, you know that I'm first of all a journalist. That's what I am, and I think that's what I was born to do. I'm now into academia. Now, there are two levels. There is journalism training, and then there's journalism practice. When you have done the practice and you are now training, then you give the students that you're training the complete dose. And you remind me of my days when I was in CRTV Douala. I still cherish them. And I wish you could invite me more times to come back here and rehearse some of my reporting skills, which are almost gone.
So we always hope
Thank you very much.
Whenever we need you.
Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is where we draw the curtain on this edition of The Inside. Thanks for staying with us. Take the appointment for next Sunday for another edition of the program.